Hey, welcome to Lead Up Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Harbour, and I'm excited to have you join me for episode 450. Today, we're talking about one of the most powerful principles in leadership, the concept of leading by example. Now, don't leave me too soon. I know it's probably an over talked about subject, but it's really important, and I'm going to dive into some things that are going to help you today. So don't tune me out until you listen to see if it's going to add value to you. If you've been in leadership for any amount of time, you've heard the phrase, I'm sure, actions speak louder than words. It's a simple truth. But in high pressure leadership, in the high pressure world of leadership, it's easier said than done. Yet what we do as leaders often speaks far more profoundly than what we say. Here's a question to help us get started today. What are your behaviors communicating to the people you lead? Are you setting an example of excellence? Or are there areas where your actions don't quite align with your words? To illustrate this theme, I want to start with a quick story from my own history, my own career. When I was a young leader in the Army, I had set an expectation for my team. After a few months of being in charge, a courageous member of my team asked to talk to me about the expectations that I had set, and then went on to provide examples of how I was not modeling some of those expectations. This experience taught me firsthand, of course, that leadership isn't about titles. Yeah, I was in charge, I had rank on my shoulder, but titles don't really matter. It's about showing up every single day in a way that reflects your values and inspires your team. So today we're going to dig into the importance of walking the talk as a leader and explore how self-leadership builds trust, accountability, and long-term success. I'm going to share some insights from my books, Power Principles and Quit Losing Talent, and some examples of leaders who have achieved extraordinary results by leading through their actions, applying some of the things that we're going to talk about today. Now, as I always ask you, grab a pen, grab some paper. I want you to take some notes, maybe even grab a few friends and colleagues and use this as a lunch and learn to learn together and challenge each other. Just buckle up and get ready. We're going to go fast. I'm going to give you some key things that you can begin to apply in your leadership today. Let's talk about leading by example and leadership first. The pressure in leadership is immense. It's maybe as hard as it's ever been. We've got all kinds of factors that are facing us with baby boomer retirements, the shrinking in the workforce, the challenges in the way the workforce wants to be led today versus yesterday, technology that faces us, financial crunches, we're do more with less, burnout, overwhelm, social media. Did I hit them all? I don't want to create even more fear, but the pressure for you to lead, for us to lead today at a high level is even higher than it's ever been. It's maybe harder to be a leader today than it's ever been. And so it's easy for that pressure to drive reactive rather than intentional behaviors. But here's the thing, your team is always watching you. They pick up on the small things that you do and say, like how you handle stress, how you interact with patients in the healthcare world or customers outside of the healthcare space, whether you keep your word when it comes to commitments in the way that you lead, what you say, how you lead others on the team as well as them. These are just observations, and they build or erode the culture of your team. Let me share a couple things out of Power Principles for you, a book that I wrote. One of the foundational principles is that leadership is not just about setting goals. I'm a goal setter, a goal achiever, and I love setting goals. But leadership's not just about setting goals. It's about embodying the behaviors you want to see in your team. Or as I like to say, leaders raise the bar. What bar are you setting for yourself and asking others to strive for with you? Let me give you an example of someone I've worked with. We'll call her Stephanie, a clinical director. I've had the privilege of meeting while consulting with their organization, her organization, and we're helping them embody the values and the culture they desire around the organization. Stephanie doesn't just talk about excellence. She lives it. And in all of her team meetings and her Monday walkarounds, her huddles, She's made rounds with the team, engaging with not just the clinical staff, but also patient care assistants and custodial staff, administrative workers, helping with tasks as needed when she can, when she has time. Just talking and listening to concerns and modeling teamwork that we expect, looking for little changes that she can make, that the senior leadership team can make, and other leaders on the team can make to help create a culture that thrives, where people thrive, where they want to stay. This simple act of like being fully present in those meetings and engaging with them has boosted morale, employee retention, and behavior changes that are desired within her leaders and the rest of the organization. So the key takeaway here is this: the example you set creates the standard for your team. If you operate with integrity and commitment, your team is going to strive to do the same. I've watched Stephanie's team strive to be better communicators, strive to be better team members, strive to lead their team members with a greater level of excellence. See, what we model, we get. It's the law of the picture that John Maxwell teaches. People do what people see. When they see you as a leader, model not just what you say, but they actually see you do what you say. They're going to follow in kind with you. So here's your action from this first segment. Take a little time today and reflect on this question. What behaviors am I modeling to my team? Is there a gap between the words that I say and my actions? And what can I do? How can I act? How can I behave to close that gap? Let's move on to the next topic I want to share: the impact of self-leadership on trust and accountability. This is going to be critical. Leading by example begins with self-leadership. I often say the number one competency skill that you can develop as in leadership is self-awareness, this self-leadership. If you want to inspire trust and accountability in your team, you have to first be accountable to yourself. Set very high standards for yourself and follow those for yourself. This means managing your emotions under stress, being consistent in your actions, showing up not just when it's convenient, but even when it's hard, even when you're having a bad day, even when other things aren't going your way. John Maxwell, I mentioned earlier, he said this: a leader knows the way, goes the way, and shows the way. See, people are watching you, and how you model, how you show up, how you express your energy is going to result in the energy that your team and those around you express as well. I was working with a clinical manager, a nurse manager one time named Samantha. She implemented a team accountability system after noticing that there was miscommunication and it was leading to errors in the organization, had multiple departments underneath her umbrella. And oftentimes in healthcare especially, there's silos and people aren't communicating with one another. So here's what made it remarkable, what she was doing. Rather than launching a system and stepping back and hoping that others would just follow it, the leader applied the same process in her own work. And she tracked tasks and goals with the team and owned their mistakes publicly. She owned her mistakes publicly, sharing examples of how she was also using this accountability system, this tracking system in her own work to be a better leader, challenged the team to do the same in their work. Because of this, the system didn't feel like a top-down micromanagement directive. It felt like we're all in this together, which means that results got better. She was able to drive the change in behaviors that she was looking for. Look, everything we do in leadership is about behavior change. And the only way we can really drive behavior change is model that behavior change ourselves. Here are a couple of ways you can start improving your own self-leadership today. Number one, a daily check-in. I call this meeting with self. Before starting your day, ask yourself, what do I want my actions to communicate today? How do I want my behaviors to drive energy of others, to drive passion of others, to drive commitment of others? Am I showing up that way? Just have that meeting with self. Get yourself in the right frame of mind as a leader so that others are inspired by your actions, inspired by your behavior, inspired by your words. They love seeing you coming. The second thing is own your mistakes. Look, you're not going to be perfect. Nobody is perfect. You're going to make some mistakes. You're going to have, I call this failing forward. Next time something goes wrong, don't make excuses. Just own it. Model how to take responsibility and work toward a solution within yourself or within your team. So before we move on from self-leadership and trust, though, I want to share some insights from a colleague of mine. His name is Corey Shear. And Corey wrote a book titled Closing the Trust Gap. And you can look for Corey's interview later this year on the Lead Up podcast. You can also go to Amazon and buy a copy of his book, Closing the Trust Gap. But Corey shares 3 building blocks of trust. These are what I call self-leadership building blocks. This is all about self-leadership. If we want to build trust, these building blocks, it begins with us, the self-leadership. But number 1 is competency. Are you good at your job? Are you good at your role as a leader? Not just the technical aspects. Maybe you got promoted into a leadership role because of how good you were technically, your expertise and the work that you do. But what about the essential skills of leadership, like communication, coaching, building engagement, building alignment, building trust between the team, building teamwork, hiring people that are good fits for the team? There's so many other things that we need to get good at, we need to be competent at as a leader, and people are evaluating us on, they're watching us, and that's how they determine whether they trust us or not. So competency in all of those areas of leadership is one of the building blocks of trust. And this is where self-leadership comes in. Number 2 is problem solving. Corey shares that problem solving can you bring solutions? Can you understand data and best practices? Do you help or do you hurt the situation when there is a challenge within your team and your leadership? Can you solve problems between individuals? Look, one of the things that I spend a majority of my coaching around is helping leaders communicate more effectively with other leaders on their team or other people on their team and resolving conflict that naturally is going to happen because we're 2 different people. One of the skills and competencies we need to develop as a leader is problem solving around relational and communicational issues. The third building block that Corey shares is caring for others. Do you seek to understand others and listen actively before you drive your agenda forward? Do you care about your team? I was talking with a leader just yesterday, asking for some coaching help. And I just got this sense that she didn't care about the people on her team. She didn't care for others. She's wanting their money. She's wanting their effort. She's wanting them to do the job, but she's not really spending time caring about them and helping them get better in the skills that are required for them to do better work in their roles. That's a competency that leader's going to have to develop. It's this care for others. I don't really get it. As a leader, we shouldn't be in a leadership role if we don't care for others. And look, that's something I've had to work on. Early in my life, I cared about my agenda, my goals, what I wanted, my career growth. I had to make that transition eventually to realize leadership is about serving others under my charge, not being in charge of others. Seems simple, not always easy. So how would you rate yourself? In Corey's research, he found leaders will typically rate themselves 30% better than the team that they lead would rate them. That's a huge trust gap, 30% gap in trust. Maybe this is an area to consider a growth plan for yourself and your self-leadership. Maybe you need to work with a coach. Maybe you need to partner with a mentor to help you develop some of those areas. What are all the competencies and skills that you need to work on? Problem solving, caring for others. How can you get better at those things? Let's move on to the third piece I want to share with you, walking the talk to build culture. This is where the rubber meets the road. To create a culture of excellence, you have to be relentless in modeling it. This means aligning your actions with your core values. And even when it's inconvenient or uncomfortable. At many organizations that I've helped, teams struggle with burnout and disengagement. And what we do is we help department leaders step in and decide to walk the talk. We challenge them to implement a policy of mandatory wellness breaks or making sure their employees take their PTO, paid time off. I call it personal time off. Go do something fun and get away from work. Some employees are better at that. Some aren't. They get burned out. And so we challenge leaders to kind of make this a policy within their team. And over time, teams not only feel permission, but they also see it as an obligation so that they can show up as their best at work, to prioritize their own well-being. Are you doing that? If that's culturally what you want, we say people are our most important asset. Are we taking care of them? That's just one simple idea that I wanted to give you today. And when we do that, in some experiences we've had, within 6 months, patient satisfaction scores or customer satisfaction scores rise and staff turnover declined. Those are both benefits to your bottom line as a leader. One of the things that you should be watching as a leader, as an elite leader. Here's some key practices for you to walk the talk. Number one, clarity of values. Make sure your team knows what you stand for by consistently demonstrating this in your daily actions. Look, I've talked about target checking your values in my book, Quit Losing Talent. You can go back and search the archives of the Lead Up podcast where I teach on that. You may even want to get a copy of my book, Quit Losing Talent, at Amazon. This is the very first tactic in the book, is target checking your values. Know what they are. Make sure others know what they are and how we show up, how we model those. I can't tell you how many organizations I've worked with that no one really understands the values of the organization. Oh, sure, they're over there on the wall, but we won't really know them and how to live those out and what they mean to us as an organization. This is like driving without a steering wheel. Think about that. You're driving in a vehicle, but you don't have a steering wheel in it. Now, I know there's electric vehicles now, but we still want that steering wheel to grab a hold of, right? To make sure we have a little control. If we want to control culture, direction of our team, make sure you have the steering wheel of values in place to help move the team in the direction that you want to go. The second thing is be visible. Just don't lead from behind your desk. Get outside and intermingle with people on your team. Do some C-squared conversations, some C-squared rounding, some talent lock conversations with your team. Get engaged with them. Be a part of them. And then finally, model this work-life balance. You're only as good as a leader as you are in your personal life, like taking care of yourself, developing yourself, growing yourself, making sure your health, mind, spirit is where it needs to be a great leader. I spend as much time working on my physical, mental, and spiritual health as I do anything else that I do as a leader, because I want to show up for my team the very best that I can. Are you doing those things yourself? So here's your action step. Identify one value you want to see more on your team, whether it's innovation or collaboration or empathy or trust. It doesn't matter what it is. Just get one value and tomorrow take one action that demonstrates that value for your team to see. Model it. It's the law of reciprocation. What we throw out is going to come back to us. If you want your team to grow, to trust, to work harder, whatever those things are that you're seeking, be the model of that. You'll get more of that coming back at you. Culture isn't built through words. It's built through consistent, intentional actions. So as we wrap up today, I want to challenge you to do some real reflection on your self-leadership. Take 10 minutes this week, just 10 minutes. Evaluate where your actions align or where they don't with your words. Maybe even invite your team into sharing that with you. Maybe you've got a courageous team member like I had early in my life that said, hey, Mike, you're setting this expectation, but here's your actions that don't really align with that. And yet you're expecting us to do what you're saying. Here's the truth. When your team sees you living out your values, trust grows, accountability strengthens, excellence thrives, but it starts with you. I'll leave you with this quote from Warren Bennis. He said, excellence is a better teacher than mediocrity. The lessons of the ordinary are everywhere. Truly profound and original insights are to be found only in studying the exemplary. Study the exemplary. I've given you some great tips on how to go from good to great today. But also be excellent, be exemplary, be elite. Hey, if today's message struck a chord with you, don't stop here. Go ahead and continue to listen to other episodes of the Lead Up podcast. Grab Corey's book, grab a copy of my book, Quit Losing Talent. Share this episode with others on your team. and begin to implement these ideas in the work you do as a leader. Hey, I'm grateful that you continue to tune in to the Lead Up Podcast. We'll see you on the next episode. Hope you'll join me then.